All right. I cannot wait to introduce you to Nicola Salter, an empowerment mindset mentor, a coach, a speaker, podcaster, author, educator. Oh my goodness. And we are so fortunate to have you with us today in our Direction, Not Perfection community. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it's just great to be here. I love what you're doing. So thank you for asking me.
Oh my goodness, it's the pleasure is all mine. Can you dive into a little bit about you, how you got to be doing what you're doing today? I have 1,000 questions for you, but I guess our listeners should understand who you are first.
No, that's a great place to start. Um, so I'm originally from England, London, England. I now live in Los Angeles, California. And I spent a long time in London in the corporate world and also studying holistic medicine and also studying the impact of the mind and body and emotional wellness and how important that is for our overall well-being and success. I got to LA and decided not to go back into the corporate world and decided to create my own business. Now, this is like 24 years ago. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a network here, but I was young enough and maybe naive enough to think that I could do it. And so I started building a practice here in Los Angeles, doing what we call energy medicine. It's like a form of therapeutic touch, along with clinical aromatherapy, all based on helping people to beat their anxiety and that overwhelm and just, become more centered in their lives and be more aware of their purpose. And as I was doing this and building out, it was all word of mouth and referral. Um, I started to hone in on more of an expansion of my business, recognizing that people were drifting and not understanding their purpose here. A lot of them were in jobs or careers, especially women, that they were very unhappy about and weren't really stepping into what fulfilled them. And so I began studying, working with mentors and coaches, and building out my own program with some pretty interesting mindfulness tools and concepts and perspectives that would support my clients to basically create a new career or direction for themselves, but also define who they really are. A lot of people drift around, they don't really know who they are and what they want. And what's transpired since then is that over the last probably 9 years, it's showing my age, but 9 years, I've worked with thousands of women all around the world and here in the States, helping them to build businesses for themselves, but also them building their confidence, helping empower their mindset, and helping them to let go of limiting beliefs and self-sabotage, things that are holding them back from stepping into what they want. So that kind of gives you a overall very fast, quick snapshot.
No, and before we hit the record button, I think this was really important too. Just your niche market and what you were noticing out of the younger, the
Yeah.
20-year-olds versus, can you go into that a little bit too? Because I found that pretty fascinating.
Yes, I did. I have too. I've found that it was a surprise to me with this particular market of, younger 26 to 28-year-olds coming to me for advice on how to build out their own side hustle, their own side gig, and feeling very lost and overwhelmed because for a lot of them, they've been given so much around the hopes and dreams of life and that
Mhm.
you can do anything that you want type of talk, but no one's actually shown them the structure of how to do it. And they're very influenced by the influencers out there. So their belief systems are like, yay, anyone can go and set up a business, but they're
Mhm.
not really understanding the logistics and framework and business model that they can use. And also they're a little lost in terms of their mindset and are quick to walk away if something's not working out. So I've sort of become like a mama bear to these younger ones, which was a surprise. But they appreciate the encouragement, they appreciate the infrastructure and the modeling, and helping them really strengthen their mindset to do this. So they've got what it takes, but they just a little bit too much of a somewhat dreamy generation, that the ones that
Sure.
I've met anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I just feel like, just from an accountability piece for every generation, the whole set out to do something, it's just so helpful to, you were a show up factor for him too, that
Thank
they're
you.
going to set a goal, they're going to show up, you're going to talk about it and start it again. That that's where you and I feel like cross over a lot into what we do with our clients, because I feel like people sometimes know what to do and then with the
Mhm.
guidance, but then also it's how can I just hold your feet to the fire so you make sure that you told me this is really important to you. So how can we keep you on this straight and narrow? Which you
Exactly.
bring up you talk about the why, really helping your clients discover their why. Go into what that looks like in your world.
Um, so just picking up on what you said too about, holding people and your clients accountable. I'm doing the same in a slightly different way using the why. And it's for women who are already in their business. So it's like maybe 2 or 3 years they've got into the business. They've done pretty well, but they're feeling a bit burnt out. Maybe they're feeling a bit overwhelmed by it because
Mhm.
we have to invest a lot of time. Let's face it and be realistic here. So I help to reconnect to their why. So it's like, why are you doing this? What is the difference that you want to make by having this business? And helping them understand the value that they're bringing and the impact that they're having on the community and the wider community helps them to improve their self-value of okay, and helps them to more deeply connect to their business and taking it to the next level rather than walking away. So I help them just see a bigger picture, a different perspective of why they started this in the first place.
Yeah, which is awesome. Thank you. Thank you for describing that. That's
Yeah.
helpful. Moving
Okay.
forward,
Yeah.
you and
Yeah.
I started to talk about we have a lot of the same lingo that we use,
Yeah.
and one of them is why in the health and fitness world. We for sure talk about knowing and understanding our why so that we know what we're fighting for.
Yeah.
And then low hanging fruit was another one that really popped out there for me because and we'll go into overwhelm as well. But for my clients, like nutrition and fitness is thrown at them through news, through media, through social posts all the time. And it is just overwhelming. And so picking the low hanging fruit is like finding those little tidbits of things that work for you and you can implement. And it doesn't feel like it's unattainable. What does
That's
that
right.
look like in your world when you talk low hanging fruit?
Same thing. Same thing. It's about what is easily attainable rather than having to start all over again and recreate. We're really good creators. And but sometimes it takes so much time to create a product or service, as we know. So your low hanging fruit in my world is like what you're good at, what experiences you have had in your lifetime. And I actually look at the experiences, the negative ones as well as the positive ones that have shaped them. We go back in time and look at the journey that they've had and then pull some of those threads together so that they can see and connect the dots to, oh, wow, this is either why I behave this way and I want to change that, or, oh, wow, I didn't realize I could actually do this. And it helps to then create more of an emotional consciousness in their marketing. It helps them to go more connected to when they're
Hmm.
putting their messaging out. So I use the low hanging fruit that way, and then also to build a product or service that they hadn't necessarily thought of. They'll say, I don't know what to do. I want my own business, but I don't know what to do. So I say, okay, let's look at your low hanging fruit. So that's how I would be using it. And it's similar. It's very
Yeah,
similar, but it's, yeah, you're right. It's what is easy to do. And I noticed in your book, which I love, Direction Not Perfection, this
you're so sweet.
accountability,
You're so sweet.
um, this great book. I haven't read all of it because I only arrived yesterday, but what I have been looking at, the solutions that you're providing, and I did notice that accountability is like one of the biggest, well, you've got many in here, but it seems to be one of the priorities in here for people in terms of how you work with them. But you also say that, change, you cannot help someone change unless they're ready to make the change. And that's fundamental in my work too. It was something I didn't really realize until even up to 5 years ago. People
Hmm.
were coming and just getting on with the program, doing the program. And then I realized it's like, well, if these people aren't ready to make the change, they're not going to do the work, and they're not going to be accountable if they're not
Right.
ready.
Yeah. Which brings in that mentoring term as well as coach. And I think
Mm,
this is why I went from clinical dietitian into more of where I am now, because when we mentor, like we both are doing, or coach, we're allowing the person to tell us what they want versus coming into that session feeling like we know what we want to offer them.
Right.
And it's just interesting to watch that progress, because there's so many times that I think I know what somebody's going to come in and want, and then they reveal it. And I'm like, oh, you know what? It's not about me. It's about you.
Of course, right. We will get lined up with what we think we can offer based on the conversations we're having. And then, yeah, it can take a whole 360-degree turn. And that's what makes you good at what you do, because you're flexible and you can pivot and you can move with that. When you're overly structured and bogged down, as I call it, with a program that has to be done like this, and it's very cookie cutter, there's no room for that pivoting. So when you're doing the one-on-one and it's more flow, it's more beneficial for the person who's coming in for the coaching to have that type of approach. But it takes a lot from the person, the mentor and the coach, to be able to do that. Yeah, it's quite a skill.
Yeah, but worth it, right? It is. I think the part that keeps it really interesting too, that it's not cookie cutter and everyone's so individual.
So absolutely. And, I decided a long time ago with my business model that it would have to be one-on-one. It would have to be fluid. There'll be certain, obviously, structures within it that need to be met, but done in a way that it's fluid and flowing. And the person does create their own solutions. You hold the space for them. You ask the right questions and they find it. And they're honestly just quite astonished themselves when they do find it. And like, how did that happen? I've been looking for that for years.
Right. A little probing.
Yeah. So it's fascinating.
Maybe this goes along with it while we're on the mentoring part. You mentioned that you help people bring up their forgotten parts about them. And I think that I'm connecting this the right way, but what do you mean by forgotten parts?
Yeah, it's a good, I may have to reword that on my website actually, because it's kind of resonates with me, but for some people they might not understand that. What it means is that the women I see will often come in having overinvested in relationships, work. You mentioned this in your book too. I can't remember which section it was in, but you talked about a woman who came in to see a psychologist that you were working with, I think, and she said that she would give everything, even the shirt off her own back. And the psychologist said, well, that's not necessarily a good thing. What will happen to you when you don't have your shirt? Mm-hmm. And I see that with women. We're so good at giving and caretaking, and we lose sight of who we are. We lose sight of our essence. And I call it our forgotten part. So during the work I do, I help them reconnect to those parts, their hopes, their dreams, their desires, but who they are as a person, and help to encourage them not to have boundaries and not overgive, and to really become who they truly are and be okay with it. A lot of women like to please, to be loved, to be liked, depending on their upbringing. And so it's really helping them embrace the fact that, you don't have to give your shirt off your back to feel good about yourself, and help them reconnect to those parts where they're like, oh yeah, I used to be like this. I'd forgotten that. So that's the forgotten self.
I just got chills with you saying that. It comes up often, and even within my membership and my women, but just the whole, I don't know what I want to do right now, because I have a lot of women entering into that retirement phase, and maybe some don't have the grandbabies yet. They're in this it's just me again, or just me and my husband, and I don't know what I love. So for you to come in and help on something like that, I can help you rediscover, and for them to have those aha moments of oh, I was like that. I don't know. It hits a nerve within me too, because I want that for everybody. I want them to know themselves.
It's so sweet. You're so sweet. Yeah, I mean, it's so many years of giving to the family, so many years of working, giving to the family. As I said, maybe over investing in their relationships and their marriages, partnerships. And no one's asked them to do this. This is something that they've chosen to do, and they've been very sweet. But each of us has a life. Each of us has a reason for being here and a purpose for being here. And yes, it is to help others and to support others. But it's also like the university of the soul, I call it. You come to have experiences, right? And it's important to have those experiences before you pass on. And so whatever age you are or phase you are in your life, reconnecting to that part of yourself is so important to yourself, to have experiences that are for you and to help you grow and to feel fulfilled.
Mm, that's so good. It's so much deeper than where my head was going.
Oh, sorry. It's like,
I'm like, one of the forgotten parts that I talk about with people are like their fitness personality and how they used to like bike riding or they used to like rollerblading.
but but that's great. That's practical. This is so good. You're doing the practicals, which people are more likely to jump into through that door than sometimes through the door I'm offering, because it's, oh yeah, I can do this. I can go and start doing more fitness work. And it builds the confidence to remind them of who they used to be. So
Yeah,
no, it's
both.
whatever route. Yeah, it's whatever route it takes, So no, I think it's great. It's so
Yeah.
fun.
I don't want to leave the overwhelm part yet. And I know I kind of keep quoting things from you, but I really liked it. That women are skilled, and most women have this amazing capacity, call it to multitask or to do whatnot. And I know that you've already covered a bit of this, but that we overcommit, that we can't set boundaries sometimes appropriately. And then that ultimately leads to the overwhelm.
Mm,
And can we just hang on that overwhelm for a minute? And how do you
mm.
start to release people from overwhelm?
Yeah, it's such a reactive place to be in. And once they understand that it's a reaction that they're having, and it's a choice they have to change it,
Mm,
that helps. But it's patterning from the past. So it's some examples might be, that I've got one client right now, and she's like, there's never enough time. There's just never enough time. So it's breaking down what her life and daily schedule looks like. And usually it's because we're over exceeding ourselves. We're trying to over anticipate, overstretch. We're not being realistic about
mhm,
what we're trying to achieve, or we're trying to keep up with other people. And
mm,
we're not really staying true to our own journey. So it's learning to set boundaries, learning to say no. So really like examining the environment that you live in first and how you react in your environment, and with people as well. And then there's some tools that I use, and they're in the program, which we'll talk about in a minute, the other program. There's a method of emotional release that I teach them, and I help them identify what's causing the overwhelm. And then there's an emotional release method that we use to help soften and dial down the volume of that reaction they keep having, so that in time, after a month or 2 months, they're not as overwhelmed as they were,
mhm.
and they're learning how to manage it in a much better way that's more productive. But yeah, overwhelm is something that I think all of us have to check in with on a daily basis. Especially now with businesses being online, there's so much competition out there as well. And you're trying to do your podcast, you're trying to write your book, you're trying to do your Instagram, it's like,
Right,
there's
right.
just no way you can do all of it. So it's breaking it down realistically with the projects of like 6 months we're going to be here, 6 months we're going to be there, and having more realistic expectations.
Yes, which we should go into. Let's talk about your programs for a minute, because I feel like somebody hearing from the outside would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, because
Yeah,
any of these practices, anytime we're working on something, and we'll just stay
yeah,
on overwhelm, but it's a practice. It's constantly working towards something and practicing it until it becomes a little bit more innate. And
yeah.
so you offer programs. Go into some of your work here.
So the online program that I have helps people do more self-care for themselves so that they can manage their overwhelm and anxiety more easily. And the online program is something they can just do at home. It's like having your own therapist and teaching you why you might be overwhelmed, like how to recognize some old emotional patterns that you've got from when you were a kid, and that you've grown up with. So, for example, trying to please your father because your father was always angry, let's say. So as a kid, you were trying to please. That trying to please carries on through your life, and you start making choices about how can I please this person, um, and you start self-sabotaging yourself. So I've got methods and the use of essential oils and breath work in the online program that helps to really help disconnect from anything, any type of emotion that's holding you back. So it's an online training program, and it's like 6 hours, and there's tons of videos in there, how-tos, and people love it because there's the use of essential oils. You get to understand a really good picture of why you might get triggered by somebody saying something to you, where it comes from. So you learn how to forgive yourself more. And then there's these methods that you use in a very quick, on the spot type of way to help you just calm and recenter when you're feeling overwhelmed, anxious, or upset. So that's an online program. It's called How to Decode and Calm Your Emotions. And that's on my website.
Okay, don't move on to the next one yet. So when you say
Right.
6 hours, somebody
Yes.
could binge it for 6 hours, or they could spread it out over months, or how's that work?
Spread it out over months. You can do whatever you want. And usually, I mean, it's in bite-sized pieces, so it's very easy to follow. And you could just do an hour each week if you wanted to, or 2 hours if you wanted to, and then just keep going back to it to revisit the methods that are used. And I think there's 3 methods in there that are science proven, each of them different. And you might use all 3, you might just use one. You might look at maybe 3 essential oils that you want to use for your anger management or building confidence, or there's one for grief. Like rose, for example, essential oil is beautiful if you've had a loss. There's different emotions that we cover in terms of resentment, anger, despair. And also I teach you how to release emotional clutter, like what's one overriding thought that keeps getting in your way, that's stopping you, and how we release that emotional clutter. So again, very quick, effective, easy techniques that you can use for your own self-care if you're experiencing overwhelm, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, panic attacks. And each of these methods I use with my clients. I've been doing them for like 25 years for myself, with my clients, and also at a center where I work, where I help people to overcome anxiety. So these are very everyday techniques that I'm using, and I just decided to put them in a program to help people, support their emotions.
Can you give us a hope story on this too? Because I think when people are in that moment of a lot of anxiety, it doesn't feel like that something like that would even work for them, or that they can't see themselves ever getting out of where they currently are. Like this is
Yeah.
just what they have to live with, their curse, their cross they bear.
Right. And, I too have this a lot. People say, oh, I've tried everything, and this isn't going to work. It's never going to work. So I had a client just recently who went through a lot of distress when she was a child and saw family members taken away from her when she was a child. And she'd had suicidal ideation. She'd had suicidal tendencies as a teenager. She's now running a very successful business, but she couldn't go to the next level with her business because she kept feeling sabotage, that she was going to be abandoned too. Like she saw her family members being taken away. She always had this fear that she would be abandoned. And so she wasn't able to go to the next level in her business, kind of felt a little depressed about this. She felt that maybe she'd reached a limit and that was it. Like, okay. So she used the techniques that I showed her. And there's some breath work, there's some tapping work that we did. And she went through about a 4-week period of what I call rockiness, bumpiness, as she started to reestablish her true center and away from these emotions that she'd experienced as a child. And so she went through this period of rockiness with a lot of tears coming up, a lot of emotion, anger, resentment, crying, shame. And she was able to keep using the tools that we were working with, and she's got through it, and she's now moved her business up to a whole nother level. Now that's just like one story. There's so many that I see, and some of these techniques are also used with veterans that come back from the war, who have post-traumatic stress. And what they share with me is that, one Navy SEAL, actually, a retired Navy SEAL, told me a story of how he'd been on a plane a couple of years ago and was just about to jump into a situation that was very violent on the plane, and to not actually assist the situation, but wanting to beat the guy out that was causing the problem. And he said he remembered in a split second to do this particular technique that I showed him, and it enabled him to reset his nervous system, sit down, calm down, and not get involved. If he'd got involved, it would have caused a mess. So, so it's just a case of resetting the nervous system. And when you do that, there's a little bit of an outpouring that takes place because you're releasing repressed emotion.
Right.
And then we manage to get back to center again. So it can be very deeply connected work most of the time. And again, if you're willing to be ready to make the change, then, these are techniques and methods that it's very simple, non-invasive, take a little bit of time if you're committed to do them, but not hugely. And most people notice the difference. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm hearing this out of you as well, but there's no quick fix. All of this is just learning tools and knowing how to implement and practice. And yes, quit thinking that it's just a one and done or a grab a pill and get through this. Like, there's tools.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's taking you, however old you are, let's say you're 25, well, it's taking you 25 years to build that experience and reaction that you're having. Maybe if it's from childhood, or it could be something that happened 2 years ago, but it takes time for that emotion to become a dominant factor for you. And if you've got one overriding thought pattern about yourself or belief about yourself, that's been a result of something that happened to you, that you've experienced, and you now have the choice to change it. But you always have the choice. If you want to sit in it and remain in the victim place, then okay. But you do have a choice to change it. Only you can make that choice.
And that keeps resonating with me too, the choice piece of it, because I think a lot of us don't feel that way. And then if we really are honest with it, there's some choice, whether or not it's a huge choice at the moment, but some choice to just start moving in the right direction. Tell us about your other program that I cut you off from.
No, you didn't cut me off at all. I mean, the choices as well, you've got the intention to make a choice. It might not be a choice that you're fully like, yay, 200% happy about, but it is a choice to make a change or a difference and move with intention. Yes, and that's the beginning of it. Yeah, it's the beginning of it. The other program is there's the Redefine Yourself program, which is the coaching and mentoring program that we were talking about earlier, helping women to build out a business or expand on a business and create more emotional connectedness through it. And done for you content that I do with them, building out content and what that business actually is. It could be a program, it could be podcast, it could be a product or service that they've always wanted to create, and how that would work, and building that out with them. The other one is a program called it's an empowerment transformation. It's a mindset transformation program, and that's something I do with groups. It's twice a month. It's live on a webinar, and it's all about shifting your mindset and giving you the tools to create a better life for yourself, empowering your mindset into a new way of thinking, and giving you new perspectives and ideas and more of a deeper connected mindfulness way of making the change in your life that you'd like to make. So those are the ones that I offer. The coaching program is usually 12 weeks, and then we work one-on-one together. In the empowerment, the mindset transformation, group is about 6 months. It's twice a month for 6 months, and it's like
Oh, wow.
it's like a membership. You know, we all jump on and then we talk afterwards, and there's questions and answers and one-on-one counseling if you need it. And so all of this is about empowering your mindset and retraining your brain. Ultimately, it's about retraining our brain to a new story and allowing those limiting beliefs to not play such a strong role as they have done, you know?
Yeah.
And like kind of shifting it, dialing the volume down on those so that we can really be who we are supposed to be and just have a more of a fulfilling life, you know, more rewarding.
Right. Right. We're both saying be the best version of
Be the
you.
best
We want to
version.
help you. Yes,
Yeah.
thrive.
Yeah.
And it all crosses over. It really does. I feel like everything you're saying and weight loss too, or just in health in
Mm-hmm.
general, we all come in with our baggage and our story and
Yeah.
what our environments that we grew up in. And for a lot of people, they just tackle the nutrition or fitness component, and we really need the emotional component in there with it, or else we're just back to square one each time when that next nutrition or fitness doesn't help. It doesn't get us there. So
Right. It's what I call your resiliency. And you know, if you're really good in your physical resiliency, that's great. But it is, like you said, the spiritual, the emotional resiliency that comes together to make you coherent as an individual. And so that, like you said, you can keep up with your fitness program because you're emotionally confident to do that, and you have faith and you're motivated to do it.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the belief system that you deserve it, that you can do it, that age is not a factor,
Age
where you
is not a
came from is
factor.
not a factor.
Right.
There's so much.
Yeah.
And so really, could anybody be popping into these, even if, let's say they're not just entrepreneur, let's say
Mhm.
they are, okay,
Yeah.
any,
I work with most ages, and it's either they want a business or a side hustle, or they want to redefine themselves. So it doesn't have to be that you want to monetize yourself. It could be that you are in a place where you want to redefine yourself as an individual, right down to like where you live, where you want to live,
hmm,
you know, what experiences you want to have in your life, where you want to travel and go. Maybe you want to write a book. You know, what's the book going to be about? What's your purpose? Why are you here? And so it's looking at and helping you understand that you have such a value, and you can put it into something tangible if you wish. Or it's just making sure you expand your lifestyle in a way that really works for you. I work with a lady, she's in her late 60s, and she loves animals and animal rescue. And she came into inheritance, and she didn't know what to do with the inheritance. She had the house, and she had everything she needed, and she didn't know what to do with this. And so she came to me to help redefine where would she put this money that would make a difference. And what
hmm,
it came down to is that she started her own nonprofit where she donates money to animal sanctuaries. She
so
chooses
cool.
local community animal sanctuaries as well as maybe one large one a year, but she had no clue before she came
Yeah.
what it was going to be. And we created the logo, we created the organization, and now she's off running this nonprofit with the inheritance, doing something that's really important for her.
Oh, that is such a fabulous example because it helps our listeners think outside the box of this could relate to you as well. I even think for like our retired crowd who
Mm-hmm.
is trying to seek purpose and understand what they want, that you would be perfect for that too. Just helping guide in a way that again more fulfilling
Yeah.
and being proud of ourselves at the end of the day when we lay our head on the pillow. Are we
Yeah. Yeah.
smiling with yeah.
Smiling what we've done for the day. Did we achieve
Mhm.
what we wanted to do during the day? And you know, a retired community is such an incredible community, a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of energy, and so much knowledge is there in that community that is just untapped. And it makes me so sad. I mean, I know people will retire out of choice and be in a community because it's their choice,
Yeah.
but there's still so much that they can give if they
Yeah.
want. And it's helping them recognize what that is if they want. And, I have another client who went and did sort of readings when we could at the local schools, to the kids, tapping into more volunteer work. So it's keeping yourself busy and active and fulfilled and useful, and working out what that is, what that might look like. Yeah.
Right. It's purposefully busy is where my brain goes with that,
Yes.
because sometimes when there's this space, people just dive in and start doing community work or something, and it's not fulfilling because it's not really what they're seeking out to do. They just feel like they should, versus you can donate your time and love it and feel passionate towards it. But it does take time and effort to find that, depending,
Yeah, it can do, but if you've got someone to guide you, usually within a few hours, you can get quite enlightened and quite clear about what that might be. So, it doesn't take a ton, but you're right. So there's so many different aspects of being purposeful, and just really understanding that, as an individual, you're the expert. You're an expert in all those years of whatever it is what you were doing. And how do you want to share that with purpose and feel fulfilled by it? Or maybe you don't, and that's fine too. So
right. Oh no, I love that. Where should our listeners, what's the best place to go find you?
So you can visit my website at nicolasalter.com, and there's a discovery page on there, so you can schedule a free discovery call with me for about 45 minutes. We can sit and chat about what your challenges are, where you want to be, and the discovery form will help you and guide you with the questions that we're going to cover, and so that you can get a lot out of the call. And then I'll be giving you direction on what I think your next steps might be that are comfortable for you. And there's all my other programs on the website too, and there's also a podcast, which you're soon going to be on, helping you to connect to your unique brilliance.
Oh, thank you. We're so blessed again to have you today. I always kind of wrap up with this one last question. I'm not putting you too much on the spot, but if you could wrap your arms around our listeners and just send them out with one thing that you wish they understood, what would that look like?
I would ask your listeners to really love yourself for who you are, where you are right now, and just really love and appreciate yourself.
Yes. Yes. It seems so simple, but so hard to do.
I know.
Yes.
I know.
Again, thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Lindsey. I love what you're doing. Thank you for what you're doing. And I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll chat again soon.
Thank you.